we're going to quickly go to Saudi Arabia, where President is briefing the media, I think, at this particular stage with some of the ministers. You would know, of course, that the President had been on a state visit in that country. Let's quickly go live to that briefing. I think it's a wrap up of exactly what transpired on that state visit. We'll come back to this interview shortly.
Significant companies from both sides together to do more jointly than what they can do separately. We've reached also agreements on a few specific areas of general promotion, like special economic zones. We'll be exchanging a lot of information and experiences and working on unlocking more investment in special economic zones. We've got an agreement on export promotion with both of our Exim banks. In our case, the ECIC will be working together to see how they can back exports with financing, risk cover, and those matters. And then in addition to that, at the technical level, the South African Bureau of Standards has signed an agreement with the Saudi counterpart. You'll see everywhere you drive in Saudi Arabia the word SASO, and that is their standards body. So these two will be working to jointly develop the technical capability on both sides. Separate to that, there's been also the Minister of Health had also signed an agreement, and Minister of Social Development had signed an agreement. And so I had, on behalf of those ministers, also exchanged those agreements yesterday. And there's been an agreement on the exchange of news information that feed from television and elsewhere. We're able to link that up and use it in the news stations of both countries, just to facilitate the flow of information. So perhaps let me wrap there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Minister Didiza.
Thank you very much, Minister Patel. Indeed, we're here in Saudi. We signed an MOU, which is the Memorandum of Understanding on Agriculture, which opened up possible areas of cooperation between South Africa and Saudi in agriculture, aquaculture, and fisheries. This will actually enable technical exchange between the two countries, open up market access for goods from South Africa to Saudi, as well as Saudi to South Africa. One of the shops that the President will be visiting, the Lulu store, one of the Lulu group stores, has already been importing South African products, which will be on display and you will see. But most importantly, we're also interested in opening up the meat market, particularly for our beef, lamb, and goat. We have halal standards in South Africa, and we hope to finalize with the halal standard setting in Saudi to make sure that indeed we facilitate our meat products into the Saudi market. We're also looking at issues of joint investment, particularly on food security, to allow for participation of Saudi companies in our South African space, but also jointly into the African continent. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you very much. We signed one agreement. AMSCO signed up with GEMI. You will know that both of them are 100% owned by their respective governments. This will enable us to now get on with the discussions which started years ago. And before December, we tell you, we will be announcing some exciting news about the partnerships that will find themselves firstly based in South Africa, and hopefully we will transport them here. We will have an outstanding agreement which we are going to discuss with the minister here, and that is about partnering on our military academies, access to our universities where our defense studies. We will also want to take it further because we're interested in exchange programs between their air forces and ours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yesterday, I had the occasion to hold a bilateral meeting with my counterpart, the Saudi Minister of Transport and Logistical Services, His Excellency Minister Saleh bin Nasser Al Jasser. We also signed a memorandum of understanding on mutual recognition of seafarers, certificates, as well as the Maritime Transport Agreement. The Maritime Transport Agreement focuses on the enhancement of maritime cooperation between the two countries based on the existing cooperation in economic, commercial, investments, and technical fields. Considering the volume of maritime trade between the two countries, there is a greater need to cooperate much closer in the development and growth of each country's maritime shipping portfolios. The MOU on mutual recognition of seafarers certificates will go a long way in addressing the challenge of our depleted ship register and will assist with the placement of seafarers and cadets on board for sea time or employment. The signing of this MOU will enable the employment of South African seafarers on Saudi Arabian vessels and thus assisting in alleviating the plight of our seafarers who are unemployed. We have similarly reflected on the urgent need to finalize negotiations intended to revise the existing bilateral air service agreement which was signed in 2000. There are pertinent issues that require consideration to enable direct flights between South Africa and Saudi Arabia. To this end, we have committed to conclude these negotiations by the end of November in the current year. In conclusion, our officials will be negotiating the text of the Memorandum of Understanding on transport-related matters, which will be signed in the near future. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Just before the President starts here, Mr. Panda, any last few words from your side?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mwenga. Well, I think we're very happy that the visit has finally happened. This was a long-standing invitation to the President, and the President wanted to come to the Kingdom in order to advance previous discussions with respect to investment and collaboration in a range of sectors with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I believe it's been a very successful visit. I'm the prefect of visits, so when they go well, then we're really happy. The President had set a very clear agenda of seeking to pursue his economic program, as well as looking at building much stronger people-to-people relations with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And I believe that those objectives have been achieved. At the political level, we share a lot of common perspectives on the multilateral stage, and I believe these were discussed between our two leaders, and we will continue to enhance cooperation. Real results will be increased investment, greater economic formation in South Africa, and continuing political dialogue and partnership with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. Mr. President, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. This has been a phenomenally successful visit for us. We've brought with us more than 100 business people. And the good thing is that this visit has been more focused on the economy, as well as advancing our diplomatic, as well as political relations with Saudi Arabia. But the economic side and the business side have really underpinned the real substance of this visit. We had extensive discussions with His Royal Highness the Crown Prince last night, and we had a very good summit which involved all our ministers, and we covered a great deal of ground. The fact that we signed up to 17 MOUs testifies to the real great success that we have achieved here, because having started in 2018 with a commitment by Saudi Arabia to invest $10 billion into the South African economy, that in many ways was planting the seed. And that seed has been germinating, and thus far $1 billion has been invested in South Africa through a company called Aqua Power and Renewable Energy. And we are now going to be seeing more of those billions that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is very keen to invest in South Africa beginning to flow, underpinned by these 17 MOUs that we have signed. And of course, between 2018 and now, COVID intervened and stalled and delayed everything. We're now going to see everything gathering pace and momentum. They are very serious business people, both the private sector owned businesses as well as public sector owned businesses are very serious. They are action oriented, they are outcomes oriented, they want to see implementation. And the Crown Prince and myself have committed that we are going to be monitoring the implementation of all this. And as Minister Patel said, the areas span right across, from maritime to food security to agriculture to ICT to logistics, to also setting up a joint investment fund. Just demonstrates the seriousness with which Saudi Arabia is approaching the relationship between South Africa and this kingdom. They see us as a gateway, South Africa as a gateway into the African continent, but Sub-Saharan Africa. And we also see Saudi Arabia as a gateway into this market in the Middle East. And already a number of South African companies are operating here. We already have a number of very skilled South Africans who are operating here. And already a number of our goods and products are beginning to proliferate here in this market. And in a little while, we are going to go to the Lulu market to go and see the extent to which South African markets made in South Africa by South African workers are already present here. So the future looks really great and bright for South Africa in its partnership with Saudi Arabia in all areas, defense, military, and you name it. We're going to see great progress. They are highly ambitious. They are building a new city, and a city which will also involve a lot of South African intellectual property involvement and construction involvement. And those great ambitions rub on us because they have a lot of capital. They have a lot of ambition to invest and grow their capital base. And so we become a very attractive market and place for them to be partners. And the solid relationship that exists between our two countries is a good springboard on which to be able to base the great success that we hope to achieve. So we're very happy. I think we go home not empty-handed. Already during the business forum, business people were able, and Saudi business people were able to craft agreements that will amount to about $15 billion both ways in terms of the dealings that they have crafted. And so I'm looking at easily quite a lot of billions of dollars being invested also in our economy. And they will also be participating in our investment conference next year. So I think we are on a good roll in terms of our relationship with Saudi Arabia, which is based on really solid economic parameters. And that, for me, behoves well for a future that will be a good one for all our peoples. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. The ministers will be available to take questions as the day progresses, but for now, 2 questions will be posed to the President. The first one going to Amanda.
Mr. President, Amanda Koza from the Sunday Times. I just would like to know, two things, but it's one question there. In terms of timelines, how quickly do you want these MOUs implemented? Because you had said previously that you don't want us to sign MOUs and pledges are made, and then it takes a while for things to happen. How quickly do you want this to happen, especially since there's an issue with jobs in our country, unemployment rate is really high. So how quickly do you want this to happen? And I'd like to know, what did the Saudis say to us would help them? Or what would create, or what did they express would be help them for ease of doing business? How can we help them? How do they want us to help them in that regard?
With regard to the speed, and I've written down speed with which we can implement these agreements, we want the implementation to be immediate. Immediate because they are they are great implementers, and they move fast. As I said, the group that I met now, largely business people, both from the private and the public sector, and they're business oriented. They want implementation to be quick. But that speed is also going to be underwritten by His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince, intention and commitment for implementation, and mine as well. So we said we're going to monitor exactly what they do, and we are going to be almost on speed dial if we find that there's slowness in implementation. And to sort of give a clear indication of what portends for the future is that there's going to be some meetings that will be taking place within 3 months or so to see the extent to which this is going to be implemented. So they will be visiting South Africa, and we will be taking those discussions forward. And for us as well, on our side, clearly we are in a great deal of hurry. The unemployment rate in our country is undesirable, and we need to ensure that whatever economic opportunity that we get, we grasp with both hands, and we ensure that all those who are responsible do get to implement. Now, when it comes to the ease of doing business, of course, they did raise some issues in relation to ourselves, and they said let me put the positive side first. One of the companies said, we have the best, as they argued, the best system of independent power producer, that is renewable energy, in the world. They operate globally, and that's Aqua Power. They are one of the biggest renewable energy companies in the world. And they said to us that, and not trying to buy our face, they said, we find you in South Africa to have the best system, which they wish others could copy, because our IPP system has enabled them to be able to invest as much money as they have invested, and to become now successful. They are beginning to see the returns of their business. But it was also said by another business that much as they would like to ship goods through to South Africa, they're finding that our port system is a bit slow and too bureaucratic, and they would like to see our port system improving. So we took that to heart, and in my interaction with them, I told them to be transparent and to be open with us and to tell us where we can improve. And so we have gotten it from the horse's mouth, and we are going to be able to live up to improving our port system, which we have known for quite a while.
Thank you, sir. Someone can wrap us up.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mgomo. Mr. President, on geopolitics, is there a desire from Saudi, from the French crown, for Saudi to join BRICS? If there is, what are the deliberations around that? Lastly, Mr. President, on the issue of renewable energy, your investment discussions have been largely centered around energy here. This is a clear trajectory that South Africa is solely and clearly for moving towards by the unions back home, whom have seemingly become hostile not only to your administration but to the ministers as well. Thank you.
Yes, His Royal Highness the Crown Prince did express to us their desire as Saudi Arabia to be part of BRICS. And he even demonstrated it so nicely and saying there's no need to change the S because the S could stand for South Africa and Saudi Arabia. So they have a great desire, and they are not the only country that is finding the BRICS family or formation attractive because of what BRICS stands for. And so we did say to them, the BRICS nations are going to be meeting in a summit next year under the chairship of South Africa, in South Africa, and the matter is going to be under consideration. And already a number of countries or nations have been making approaches to each of the BRICS members, and we've given them the same answer, that it will be discussed by the BRICS partners themselves, 5 of them, and thereafter a decision will be made. Yes, the discussions did center around energy, but not solely around energy. Of course, Saudi Arabia being a great oil producer, which is really energy, already focuses not only on petroleum energy but also on renewables, and that is why one of their companies, Aqua Power, is one of the biggest in the world. And they are not only focusing on just the pure renewables that we often talk about, but also on hydrogen energy, green energy. And they look at South Africa as being one of the key players in the world on green or hydrogen energy, and they want to partner us. They want to be in that space with us. And of course, a partnership between South Africa and Saudi Arabia, and indeed other countries as well, is going to be a great boon for South Africa, because we have the endowments that play a key role in hydrogen energy, and we want to play to that because we see that in many ways as a game changer. And of course, our unions, the working people in our country who are largely in coal mining areas, are concerned about this transition to renewables, as they must be, because they are concerned about job losses, and we are saying that any transition, any move from fossil fuels, which inevitably is going to happen, must be based on a just transition, and a just transition that is going to take into account the jobs of the people who work on our coal mines, the communities that live around our coal mines, as well as looking after the environment. And that is why, as we struck that $8.5 billion deal at COP26, we're focusing more on a just transition. We will not want to transit to renewable energies and leave our people behind, and leave the ghost towns, and leave our workers without jobs. So it has to be just, and the good thing, much as some people will be a bit negative, is that the unions that are involved in coal mining as well as COSATU have crafted clear policies of what that just transition should be. And it is that just transition that they have crafted that we will want to see implemented. So we will not want to move forward and leave our people jobless and leave them behind. So we're very clear, as we embrace renewables, that it's got to be on a just basis. And new technologies are beckoning, they are calling us to come, and we need to embrace them. But as we embrace green energy, hydrogen, we must do it in tandem with looking after our people, so that we live up to our slogan, leaving no one behind.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Mr. President. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, guys.
Mr. President, ministers, thank you so much.
Take leave of us. Nibuela nine ekhaya nizohlala la ngihamba.
Can't leave us behind.
I can't leave you behind.
Siyabulela. Okay. We'll see you back home. Okay. Hey, Pinkong.
The president wrapping up that visit to Saudi Arabia with a number of ministers, a number of cooperation agreements have been signed, exchange programs with the Air Force, we understand, issues of food security also tackled there, both countries looking to assist each other, the opening of the meat market, also discussions that were had between the two countries, memorandum of understanding signed, cultural areas of cooperation, also critical points that have been raised. The opening of the meat market, I said, technical exchange between the two countries, also quite critical. Saudi Arabia, the president says, seeing South Africa as a gateway to the market here on the African continent. The president says they're not going away empty-handed. Also a memorandum of understanding of cooperation in this instance on health, social development, as well as news information, also signed between those two countries. So the president is saying it's quite a successful cooperation or meeting that they've held with the Saudi Kingdom. So that, of course, wrapping up the visit of the South African delegation to that particular country.